What's going on, guys? Today I have an absolute great video for you. Today is day 3 of the hunting masterclass, and today we're going to go over gear. Now we're going to talk about clothing, what you need to take the deer, what you need to deal with the deer, and all the little nuances that go into that stuff, what you should spend your money on, what you can cheap out on a little bit, things to avoid, things to get. I'm going to talk about it all because this is a really in-depth topic. It's a little bit confusing if you don't know what you're doing. And I'm going to help you break it down so that you're not wasting money and you're getting quality where it matters. Okay, first I want to talk about your method of madness. How are you choosing to take your deer? Now, this one can go pretty much 3 ways I see it. The first 2 main ways, but kind of 3, maybe 4 subcategories. The first is archery or firearms. There really aren't any other ways to take deer. I mean, there are crazy guys like Tim Wells bow hunting who takes deer and shit with spears. It's nuts, but that's not what the average person's doing. It's not what I'll probably ever do. So we're talking archery in this case, but rifle also because I do rifle hunting, but archery is what I'd probably do more of. So when it comes to your weapon of choice, you do not want to cheap out on this. So now this bow I bought about 5 or 6 years ago, somewhere around that range. Now at that time, I was definitely a lot younger, so what I paid for this, that was a bigger amount of money to me. So for this, just the bow, so I got this actual bow, then you buy your sight separate, you buy your arrow rest separate, which is right here. It did not have the quiver. This is your quiver, not the arrows, just the quiver that holds the arrows. It did not come with that. It came with this. I had a release, and I got 6 arrows. That and a case, and a bow case, which I'll throw a picture on screen right now. That costed me $630 5 or 6 years ago from a reputable store, Archery Country. Now, when it comes to your weapon of choice, I recommend spending some money on it. Now, if you do any quick search on YouTube, you're going to find there are people who've done like, cheapest Walmart, cheapest Amazon bow hunting challenges, and they kill deer, they shoot fine. If you're in a budget, that's probably what you're going to need to do, and you're still going to shoot deer. But if you do it right, you get a bow that's right for you, this thing could last you decades. I mean, it can last you decades. This thing's 5 years old, and other than the strings, which is a wear part and you have to replace after some time, it still almost looks brand new because I take care of it. So these things can last you decades, especially because if you're only hunting with them for a small part of the year and you're practicing once in a while, you don't use it a ton. So you want to make sure you spend some nice money if you can. Now, if you do have to cheap out, if you can't spend, I shouldn't say cheap out, but if you don't have a big enough budget, I'm sure I know crossbows, which is a whole different story, but there's like a $250 crossbow on Amazon that claims to be just fine. That would work just fine for you. I would recommend spending a little bit more money, but you got to do what you got to do, right? But then you get into other things like arrows. Now, these are not the original arrows. The original arrows are all long gone. Probably shot them in the woods, shot them at things, lost them. You lose arrows, you do got to buy new arrows as time goes on. Now, these arrows are relatively cheap in terms of arrows. You can buy cheap ones off Amazon, but don't do that because you want to go buy it from a store, because at the store they cut them to your draw length, and they're good arrows. The cheap ones on Amazon, they're not measured properly. They just don't do that. Make sure you buy good arrows or good bullets, depending on what you're doing. But I bought 12 arrows. I could maybe look. I don't know if I have that receipt still, but it was probably around $100 for 12 arrows. And then the broadheads, which you can see right here. These are just Muzzy 100s, which are actually a relatively cheap broadhead just because it's a piece of steel. You can spend a lot of money on broadheads, which is something you should do. But Muzzy's a good brand, and they were cheap. I think I got 5 or 6 for $30, so it's pretty good. So you want to make sure you spend good money. Now, if you guys want it, I'll make a separate video on just like bows or just rifles, breaking everything down. But in this video, I'm not going to break down the exact model, exact number, all the different nuances with a bow or rifle. I'm just telling you kind of what to avoid generally. Some brands I would go with for bow are Bear, Matthews, and Hoyt. Those 3 brands, you'll find something that fits you. I would also recommend if you do get a bow, you get something that's adjustable. This bow can go anywhere from 20 to 70 pounds of draw force. I think the draw length is anywhere from like 21 to 31 inches. I believe my draw length, I'm 5'8". I believe my draw length is 27 or 28. I don't know for sure. Don't take my word for it, but that's about what it is. So you want something that's adjustable because I bought this when I was way shorter than that, way smaller than that. So it's grown with me. I've been able to pull more force now at the higher end of that range when I started closer to the lower end. So you want to get something that's going to grow with you and change with you, and something that's built to last. This thing has been on countless hunting trips. It's been outside. It's been accidentally dropped, and it still fires perfect. The only thing I've ever had to replace on this was this little plastic piece, which was literally $3 from the store. It just broke. It just got wore because I used to shoot it a lot more. So that's kind of what you want to do with gear. When it comes to your weapon of choice, you want to spend some money. I wouldn't cheap out there, but if you're on a budget, there are plenty of budget-friendly options that are going to still get the job done. All right, let's move on. All right, the next thing that we're going to talk about is clothing. Now, clothing is something I did previously touch on, I believe, in last week's episode. But clothing is kind of a mixed bag, and I have a strong opinion when it comes to clothing. You can spend literally thousands of dollars on like 2 hunting outfits. You can spend so much money, or you can spend maybe a couple $100 less than that. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Now, if you're unsure why you would do that, why there's a difference, what the difference is, go check out my last video about sight and sound. It'll kind of touch on clothing and camo patterns. As I touched on and kind of hinted at for this video on that last one, you do not need to spend a lot of money on clothing. Clothing's something you can cheap out on. Now, when I say cheap out, you're still going to be buying nice stuff, but the problem with name brands like Sitka, we're just gonna do that because I'm a professional Sitka hater. You literally will spend $1,000 on one set of hunting clothing for one circumstance. Whereas I priced it out today for this video, you can go between Amazon and Walmart. You can get an entire set, so that's going to give you boots. It's going to give you like jean style pants with their camo. It's going to give you a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, gloves, and a hat. You can get that, plus you can get a full camo rain suit, plus you can get a full winter suit with snow pants, a coat, and a hat, and gloves. You can get all of that for less than $300 through Walmart and Amazon, where in Sitka, I didn't price it out for that, but I know it's well over $1,000, maybe even approaching $2,000, depending on the style you get. So you can cheap out a little bit here. And when I say cheap out, I mean $300, while it's not a ton of money, it's still money. Like, you have to have some money. But hunting is something that hopefully you stick with for the rest of your life. And depending on when you buy your clothes, if you're already an adult, or if you're already like 18, 19, which is an adult, but a younger adult, you're probably done growing. So these hunting clothes, if you take care of them, should fit you for the rest of your life. Also, on the topic of hunting clothes, you don't even need to buy hunting clothes. You can get like a flannel you would wear to church. You can wear that out in the woods and probably have the same success. So hunting clothes is kind of trial and error. What do you want? The one thing I would recommend with hunting clothes is, depending on where you're hunting, at least here for sure, get something that's warm. You do not want to be cold in the deer stand. It's kind of inevitable. I mean, you are going to be cold at some point in your hunting career, and probably more than once. But you want to do everything you can to make sure that you stay warm, because it's a huge difference. Like, even just walking out to the woods, there will be days where I will be in a t-shirt walking out in the early season. It's hot. I'm sweating from that. And then I sit down, and after about 30 minutes of not moving, sitting still waiting for the deer, I throw on a sweatshirt, and I'm still a little bit chilly, because not moving makes such a big difference. Even just compared to walking, it makes such a big difference in how cold you actually get. So hunting clothes, I'll leave links in the description. I'll build a spreadsheet for you guys. That's what I'll do. And I'll show you exactly how I get that price point. You could also go off websites like Temu or Shein. Now, personally, I'm not going to do that because those can be a hit or miss. And we're going to stick with, Shein and Temu, they're up in the air. We're not going to go with those overseas. I know some of the clothes from Amazon and Walmart probably come from overseas, but we're going to buy them through there. Something we know is reputable, we know for sure. So I'll build you a spreadsheet and I'll give you that figure. So now that we have our clothing, we have our weapon, we got to talk about, where are you going to sit? So in hunting, there is many different ways to do it, right? In the mountains, you're hiking, you're chasing these animals, you're stalking. But the hunting that I'm talking about, white-tailed deer in the Midwest specifically, we don't do a lot of that. Sometimes people will do that, but that really isn't the most common practice. What's common is you either pick a tree stand, which is anywhere from 12 to usually 20 feet up in the tree, or you pick a ground blind, which is literally just a camel fabric box, and you sit and you wait for the deer. You wait for the deer to come to you. You don't go to the deer. You sit still. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Ground blind, stand, what to buy, how much to spend. So I'm going to tell you from personal experience, the stand, my bow stand, which is out here on the piece of property I'm at, I got it for $50. Now, I got it used, and it's old, and it's not the best stand in the world, but it works. I see plenty of deer out of it. I actually haven't shot a deer out of it, though. So, I mean, it definitely could kill deer. The stand is not the reason why I haven't shot a deer at this spot yet. But you can spend a lot of money, or you can cheap out. Now, I'm kind of mixed on this one. Part of me, and from my experience, we have a nice stand out at our rifle spot. The stand is really nice. It's a two-person, it's a ladder stand, it's comfy, it's big, it's secure, it's made of steel. It was expensive. It was like $400 back in the day. So it's pretty nice. However, my single-person stand, which cost me $50 used, does the same thing, and the comfort levels, if you know how to do it, are relatively similar. So I don't know. It's honestly up to you. If you could, I would spend $500 on a climbing stick setup so you can be mobile. And if those of you who don't know what that is, all it is a mobile tree stand. So you'll just be, you'll be out in the woods, you pick a tree, takes you you climb up the tree with the sticks and whatnot, you set your platform, and you can leave it there, but it takes you like 15, 20 minutes to do, and you can be mobile. Those are nice, but they're expensive. If I had the money, I would do that. I would buy something like that. But for a more permanent solution, this $50 ladder stand works. Also, ground blinds. Ground blinds vary greatly in price. Personally, what I would do is I would go for more of like a low to mid-range one. They have this cool technology where you'll be sitting inside the ground blind. It's a completely clear view. There's nothing obstructing your view. It's like you're sitting in the open woods. But from the outside, it's all camo. You can't see. It's really cool. Those go for about $100 on Amazon from a decent brand. I would get one of those if you want to go with the ground blind. Now, you can watch my video on scent, which is the first video of the Deer Hunting Masterclass, where I talk about, the difference with ground blinds and stands in relation to your scent and how that kind of changes your hunting a little bit. But personally, ground blind or stand, it's up to you. I like both. I've never shot a bow out of a ground blind, but I have done rifle, and it's really nice. Because also with a ground blind, you can get away with more movement because you're covered, just a little opening. Whereas a stand, you're up in the tree. Can be a little bit colder, you can't move as much, but your scent you're easier to manipulate. So it's up to you. What do you want? If you don't have any big trees in the area, or it's kind of in an area where you don't want to climb, where you're scared of heights or whatever, get a ground blind. But if you want to be off the ground, you want the best scent control, you want a good view, get a tree stand. The type doesn't really matter. Just don't go with like a cheap, don't buy them off Temu. I know we just talked about Temu clothing, but don't get a deer stand off Temu. What I would do if I were you, if you're just getting into it, maybe talk to someone you know who has a used one they don't want anymore. An old one that still works, but it's just sitting. They don't use it anymore. Maybe you can get a good deal on it. So that's kind of what I would do there. Next, we are going to talk about once you get your deer down, what do you do with it? Okay, now this part of the video for gear is very important. A lot of people, when they think deer hunting or hunting, they think clothing, weapon, stand. They think other gear, which I'll talk about at the end because that's probably the least important for deer hunting. What people miss the ball on is what happens when you have a successful hunt. What kind of gear do you need to deal with your deer? Now, of course, talking about knives. Knives are a mixed bag again. You can spend a lot of money for a decent knife, or you can spend a little money for a decent knife. It really comes down to knowing your knives. Now, personally, I'm kind of on the lower end for this one. Now, you do not want to buy the cheapest knife you see, because the last thing you want is to shoot a deer, have a good hunt, and you have a dull knife. That was my first ever hunt. I shot my first ever deer. It was a little doe. Great, whatever. Dull knife. The knife literally would have had a hard time cutting butter. That knife was such a piece of garbage. So it made it really difficult. We had to wait. We had to get another knife. You don't want to deal with that. So what I've used for the last 4 years is these knives. Now, I don't know if they make, there's the name brand. Oh, yeah, it's right there. I don't know if you can see that. But the brand that I use is Wild Bone, and it's not a name brand. All it is at the store, you can get like these little game processing kits. And all this kit came with was a knife sharpener, a fillet kind of deboning knife, a tiny little knife, and then a gutting knife. Now, unfortunately, one of the knives was left in the woods last year, and we were not able to find it, so I only have 2 left. I did buy another knife this year. But that's all you need. You do want to get a decent knife. These knives weren't exactly free, but they weren't hundreds of dollars. I think this knife kit, I got it as a gift, but I believe it was in the $30 to $50 range, somewhere in there. So it's a decent amount of money. However, these knives are good, and especially if you have access to something like a belt grinder, if I'll post a picture on screen right now, you can sharpen them yourself. So a dull knife from the store you can make sharp. You want to make sure you get a good quality blade that will hold its edge and you can sharpen yourself. But that's kind of knives. Now the other stuff that people don't talk about are kind of as follows. So when you get your deer and you're cutting it up, whatever, you got to know what you want to do with it. Now, around here, common practice is make it into sausage, like snack sticks, make it into summer sausage. So for that, you need, if you don't bring it in somewhere, which for a deer could be $400 to get it processed by a facility, plus you're not even guaranteed to get your own deer back. That's another topic for another video. I process all my deer myself. I do everything myself or like with friends and family. We do it ourselves. We don't bring it anywhere. I would recommend this as you're going to build skill cutting meat, which is a really good skill to have regardless of whether you want to be a hunter or not. It's just a good skill for everybody to know how to do it. Get your hands dirty. But for processing, you need to make sure you have a grinder. Now, we've been through many grinders. I've seen many grinders. The grinder I have right now is just a cheap one that I think my grandma won as like a bonus from somewhere. I don't know where it was, like a prize of some kind. And it works. It's not the best, but it gets the job done, and we use it once a year, so it works. If you're going to be processing a lot of deer, I would get something better, but for that, again, mixed bag. Don't buy the cheapest one, but you don't need to buy the one that's $1,000 if you're going to use it once a year. Then you need things like a vacuum sealer or butcher paper. Now, those things are pretty standard. Vacuum sealer. Vacuum sealers are kind of a tricky one because there's a lot of cheap ones out there. Vacuum sealer, I would buy a nicer one. I wouldn't go cheap on that because the cheaper ones, they're still like $50 and they just break. They break after a few uses. The bags and the paper, just get great value brand, Walmart brand, works fine. That's kind of what you need. Now, depending on what you want to do, are you going to smoke your meats? You need a smoker. That's not really hunting related. That's kind of extra, but we have a grill pellet smoker. Works fine for that. We've used it a couple times. So that's kind of what you need. You need to make sure you have the proper equipment to deal with your deer after it is down on the ground. Because if you don't, you're going to be in for a world of hurt yourself because your knives are dull. It's going to be painful. You might cut yourself, which you don't want to do. I did that once while we were processing a deer, cutting it up, sliced my finger, and I lost a ton of blood, got lightheaded, had to lay down, had to pause cleaning the deer. You don't want to do that. You want to be very, very careful. That's why you sharp knife. Dull knife is dangerous. Sharp knife is not. That's why you want to go good with those things. And on the little stuff, you kind of just figure it out as you go. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on processing equipment to shoot 1 or 2 deer per year. But over time, kind of build up your arsenal. Maybe this season you're buying a grinder. Next season you're buying a meat slicer. Next season you're buying a vacuum sealer. Oh, you got to replace your grinder the next season. You're just building on it over time. And keep your stuff nice. That's the biggest thing when you buy something. Keep it nice. It'll last you a long time. You serve it well, it serves you well. All right, let's move on to the last point. Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about is extras. Now, extras are varied. One of the ones that comes to mind, which is something that you should kind of group in, you should have, is a hunting pack. Now, my hunting bag is, I got it as a gift last year. I believe it was like $40. It's nice. Like, you can spend a lot of money on a backpack. It's kind of the theme of this video. You can spend a lot of money on stuff, or you can spend a little money on stuff. A lot of times, it's more than just a marketing thing to get you to spend more money. A lot of times, the quality of a really cheap versus really expensive isn't even that much different. But like my hunting pack, you want something like that. You can get away with like a drawstring, but you do it long enough, you want something nice. Think about other things like binoculars, rangefinder, maybe a cushion to sit on, maybe like a hand warmer. All these little extra thing adds up. And the one thing I can say about this is you need to get out there hunting. Literally, to get hunting, you need to buy a tag. Make sure you buy a license, because in this day and age, if you're hunting without a tag and you get caught, that's a big deal. Make sure you buy your license. We're not going to talk about that because licenses are standard. Make sure you buy your license. You need a weapon. You need a place to hunt, camo, a knife. Really, to get hunting, that's all you need. You can get in for less than $1,000, and that stuff can last you a long time. But the more you do it, the more you're going to realize, hey, I want binoculars to see farther. Hey, I kind of get sore sitting down. I want to buy a cushion. Hey, this piece of clothing I don't like, but this one I did. You're going to find little extra things that you like and you want, and you're going to accumulate them as such. With the extra things, it's hard to say. I would say don't spend a lot of money on them. I would say don't go expensive, but don't go, for everything in this video, go as expensive as you comfortably can, but on some things, you don't need to. You can cheap out a little bit. But some things, you want to dedicate more budget to, like the bow or the rifle. That's where you want to put the majority of your budget, whereas the clothing, you can get away with a little bit. So that's kind of what it is. I mean, you have a lot of extra stuff. Like, for example, I have a deer call over there. I have my hunting pack, which I talked about. I have rope for dragging deer, bringing bows up stands, lots of different things. I have binoculars. I have rain ponchos. I have first aid kit. Like, there's a lot of things I have. I have headlamps that I've accumulated over the years that have made hunting easier, but I didn't start off with them. The first year I went out hunting, I had what did I have? I think I had a drawstring bag. I had a rifle my grandpa borrowed me, cheap Walmart clothing, and that cheap knife. Now, the knife, I should have bought something different, but other than that, it worked fine, and it would still work fine if I was still running it that way. So that's what I want to talk about today. Gear. We talked about everything. We talked about clothing. We talked about weapons. We talked about the stuff to get out there, the stuff to sit in. We talked about extras. We talked about processing. That's literally everything you need to get out there hunting, and I broke it down for you. Now, as I mentioned before, down below I'm going to have some resources for you. I'll have the clothing spreadsheet. Maybe I'll do some other stuff, I'm not sure. I'm recording this video before I've built any of that, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to build, but I will have the clothing spreadsheet down there just so you can get a feel for it. If you guys do like these kind of videos, let me know. I am going to finish the hunting masterclass, but after that is done, let me know what you want to see. I had something else brewing, but if you want to see more hunting videos, let me know. And if you don't, let me know. I'm not immune to criticism, and I like it. I like to hear what you guys think. I'm thinking for the hunting masterclass, I think we'll probably have 2 episodes left. I think we'll have one on hunting strategies out in the field, and then we'll have one addressing what to do with deer, and maybe a bonus one with some small things I missed throughout the hunting masterclass. So that's kind of what we're going to do. That's where I'm going to leave it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, like I said before, let me know. And if you really got some value out of this video, support me. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, whatever you want to do. Not forcing you to, but it'd be nice. You got some value, show some back. All right. That being said, see you in the next one. Good luck hunting.